Hmm. Okay, are we live? Yeah, we're live. This is 13 seconds. Okay, I can't tell on my laptop. Good. There it goes. So there is a 20-second delay between the live and the and YouTube. 20-second delay. I just realized that. Anyway, I knew there was a delay. I didn't know how long. So good evening. Welcome on this Monday night, September 18th, 2023. Um, Yeah, okay, so now it's 9:52 p.m. Central Time in Minnesota, where I'm at. As you can see by the title, we're going to go 20 reasons why Paul was a false apostle. I've gone over this multiple times in the past. It's been a while. Maybe a year. Not sure. I've done 2,500 live streams. I don't remember. But we've done it multiple times. Now we're going to do a refresher. You know what I was thinking? Well, by the way, I hope you all had a good day. I hope your day went well, whether you're listening live or on the replay or whatever day you're at. I hope it's a good one. Uh, yeah, we're gonna go over some things tonight, and tomorrow I might try something new. Well, two things new. Well, hi Dee, you had a good day? That's awesome. I had a horrible day, but I tried to make it a good day. Um, Yeah, I had a bad day and well actually I can't even say I had a bad day. I had bad legal news that because I've been fighting in this lawsuit and anyway. So I had a setback today, which sucked. But I shook it off. I got on my riding lawnmower and went out riding and cut a couple acres of grass and said screw it. And then my friend called and she had a bad day. She had got bad news. She broke her back a few months ago, and she's like in this turtle shell back thing, and she's supposed to get it off today and get a more comfortable one, and they said nope, another 6 weeks. So anyway, she got bad news today too, and anyway, we just today sucked for both of us. So anyway, me and my friend had a bad day. Both of us got some bad news, so we tried to console each other. Anyway, but I tried to shake it off because you know what? Life goes on, right? That's so is life, the ups and the downs, the valleys and the hills and the valleys. It's how life is. So anyway, I'm not gonna let it get me down because you know what? I'm super happy about something. And what it is I get to have my dad's 90th birthday party here. He's coming in from out of state. Other people are coming from the family, and it's just gonna be a great time. So I'm really super stoked about that. So it's hard to get me down right now, even if there's like sucky stuff that happens. I don't know. I don't know. I got so many blessings that I just can't really dwell on stuff. So anyway, it is what it is. Life goes on. Yeah, I get to have my dad's party here in October, and I'm super stoked and excited about it. Get planning and getting things ready, and anyway, super happy. So, yep, I just the news tried to ruin my day, and I just shook it off and thought, you know what? What's my favorite thing to do? Put my headphones on and go ride on my riding lawnmower for a couple hours and cut my beautiful, beautiful property. And I don't know, felt much better. It is what it is. Life goes on. So, and you know what? My favorite saying I've had for myself for probably 4 years. Well, at least since I moved up here. It's my saying goes, even when I lose, I'm winning. And that is from a song. Oh, was it John Legend? I can't remember. Anyway, there's a line in the song. It says, even when I lose, I'm winning. And that's how I feel when crap goes wrong. I think, you know what? Even when I lose, I'm still winning. You know what I mean? Life is still so good and I have so many blessings. So I'm counting my blessings and trying not to dwell on crap. So as we move forward, I figured I would go do the 20 reasons why Paul was a false apostle. It's an easy thing to talk about. I don't have to really look at anything because we've studied it so much. Off the top of my head, I got a lot of stuff, but we are going to go through a PDF file on the 20 reasons, and I could come up with more, but anyway, this list I have not looked through a little bit, but I've not gone through the 20 reasons. I know a few of them. I scanned through the first 4 or 5, and yep. So we're going to go through that. Like I said, tomorrow night, I was thinking, I think I'm going to try something new tomorrow. For one thing, I need to start coming on 1 hour earlier because now it's getting dark really early. And that's the time where in the fall, every fall, I switch it the time a little bit earlier. So it's like turning the clocks back, which we'll be doing in a month or two. But we turn the clocks back on the time that we do this live stream, and it's instead of like 9:30 quarter to 10, it's gonna be 8:30 quarter to 9. So anyway, I'm hoping to start tomorrow. So if everything goes right, I think I'm gonna start at 8:30 tomorrow. How does that work for you, D? Hey, what you doing? It's just, yeah, and then it might in December it might even move another hour. So sometime it depends. So, but right now it's time of year where I usually move it up forward. Sounds good. All right. And I think you're on the same time. I always forget. Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you're on the same um time zone as I am. Yeah, so it'll be 8:30 for you too. Yeah, so I'm shooting for tomorrow. I was gonna do it tonight, but I was working outside so late. And then I had to cook the dogs their dinner, and anyway, um, yeah, same time. I thought so. You know what's weird? Like Arizona, and it might be Hawaii and in Alaska. I'm not sure, but Arizona and a couple states do not observe daylight saving time. Or some call it daylight savings time. So sometimes we're an hour apart, and in the winter we're 2 hours apart. So anyway, I always gotta think what I gotta do is just Google time in Arizona, so I know what time it is when I call there. It's dark there by 8:15. Oh, D, our sunset is 7:45, I think, right now. Yeah. Yeah, we get dark earlier than that, and I think in the winter we get dark. Well, I think all the time we get dark sooner than you because we are to the east. Even though we're in the same time zone, you know what I'm saying? The sun is passing me before it gets to you, so even though we're in that same time zone, that time zone covers a lot of east to west. Sunset tonight.
Tomorrow, sunset is at 7:16 p.m.
7:16, D. Sunset is at 7:16 tomorrow. Told you, yeah, it's setting earlier here because I know sometimes when it's dark here it's still light out where you're at. And we're on the same time zone because the sun is so far to the east. My sun is to the east of you. So mine goes down before you. But yeah, it's getting dark early now. In 30 days, it'll be dark here about 30 minutes. So 7:45. Yeah. Yeah, if you're outside at sunset, you really can't tell as much. When you're inside, it looks pitch black out there. It's because it's twilight, and if you go out there, you can still see a little bit for like a half hour. But anyway, so tomorrow I do plan on coming on like 8:30. So hopefully that'll work for everybody, including me. It should though. Why wouldn't I, right? I just got to come in from outside sooner, and I can do that. So yeah, that's the plan. Oh, and second thing, remember I said a couple things I was going to do different tomorrow. Not only just starting an hour earlier, but I'm going to try to do a simulcast on I'm going to StreamYard both my channels. I'm going to StreamYard here and Exposing Evil over there. I got two channels in case anybody doesn't know. The other one is Exposing Evil. It's just basically exposing fake Christians. Then we'll fall back in time by an hour in early November. Yeah, in early November, you're right. Hi, Grace. Welcome and shalom to Grace. Hope you had a wonderful Minnesota, wonderful day. You guys, we got the ideal temperature this week. Sunny and 70, like 73 and sunny all week. It's just like couldn't be nicer. So I hope you had a good day, Grace. Hope all is well in Grace land. Yeah, so tomorrow, Grace, I don't know if you missed the huge announcement. No, it's not huge. Tomorrow we're gonna start at 8:30. We're going up an hour, which means sometimes by the time I get done with all the stuff getting it ready, it might be 8:40. But anyway, I'm shooting for 8:30 tomorrow because it gets so dark so early now. It's 7:15 sunset here in Minnesota. Don't you know? And we got hot dish. All right. So we are going to go over the 20. Man, I had so many tabs. I have two things I was going to do. Anyway, chance of rain tomorrow. Always like to see rain. Yeah. Yeah. All right, my garden's just about done. Great day today. Simply gorgeous. 0 chance of rain, but it rained. Yeah. Oh, it rained there? Really? Didn't rain here. Yeah, we got 0 chance of rain all week until Saturday. Supposed to be like 73 and sunny all week. And then rain all weekend. So yeah. So I know you must have got rain, but we didn't. Thanks for heading it off for us up here. Before it got to me. Grace lives a little south of me, so she must have blocked it like a hockey goalie. That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's see. Oh, I don't remember. So tomorrow I'm going to try to simulcast both this channel and the other channel, because tomorrow I'm going to go over a little bit more extensive stream about why the United States is not Babylon. And as a spoiler alert, I'm going to prove why Jerusalem is Babylon. And I've kind of done a short stream on it before, but I got a lot more. I actually did a whole video, a recorded video on this that I never put up. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do two things. What I did is I did a recording of proof why Jerusalem is Babylon and not United States. I made it for my other channel for people who keep saying on my other channel, one particular person that I expose. He keeps telling everybody that United States is Babylon, which you hear it from, I don't know, Paul Begley or something. I don't know. But no, it's not. Couldn't be. No way, no how. And people just make up that crap. Anyway, so I made a video for my other channel. I never put it up, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna try something, because on StreamYard I can broadcast for more than one channel at a time. So I can broadcast on this channel and my other channel. So I thought, that'd be cool. I'll do it. And I've used the other channel for backup when I've had strikes on this channel. So I have live streamed on my other channel, but it's for but I was just using the channel, you know what I mean? I've never double broadcasted on two channels. So I'm going to try that tomorrow night. And yeah, that particular person needs to read and not teach. That's right. So I'm going to show you very simply, and I'm going to prove it with a little longer and a little more detailed why Babylon is Jerusalem, and I'll show it in a way I've never seen anybody show it. Oh, whoa! Don't do that, cat. Anyway, he's ready to push that plate off the counter. He does it every time I come on here. You even heard it one night. It went smash. Anyway, they're just like kids, man. They do. When I come on here, dogs do a certain couple things because they know I'm busy, and the cat does that. And he always, since he knows I'm busy, he tries to look for the butter dish because he loves trying to get the butter dish. But I've hid it for months now, but he still looked for it. He thinks I'm busy. He's going to go hunt for that butter dish. Well, I've wised up. It's in the cut cabinet now. If you have real butter, it's how we grew up. Our butter was always in the cabinet, because your butter will not go rancid sitting out, but it will go rancid with the sunlight. So that's why good butter dishes keep the sun out. They're like usually ceramic or something real dark. It's the light. It's the light that makes your butter rotten, not the temperature. So if you have a butter, you can have a stick of butter like I do, real butter, and a nice covered butter dish, and I put it up in the cabinet. So it's really dark. Either way, and even more dark. So if I didn't have the cat, I'd leave it on the counter because it's never gone rotten. Sometimes I won't use the whole stick up in a week or two, and it's still not rotten. Anyway, it won't go rotten sitting out, but it will go rotten if it hits light. So that's why I don't get the clear butter dishes, but maybe they put theirs in the refrigerator. You can't sit a clear dish out with a stick of butter, and it'll get rancid. Ugh. Anyway, speaking of it, so get this. I should have taken a picture of it. I was just saying, I'm going to move on with this in a second. It just reminded me. You know, at the dollar store, how they have that milk that you don't have to refrigerate it? It comes in like, I don't know, paper cartons that are kind of waxy. I bought a couple I don't know, 6 of them, different kinds, maybe 8 of them. Back when I was prepping, right? And in fact, I moved in here and I put them in an underground cellar when I first moved here. Yeah, it's not good for you. So okay, so that milk that you don't have to refrigerate, I know you can get it at the dollar store. But anyway, I never tried it. All I did is I put it away with all my stuff because I used to really hoard food and prep for doomsday, which I don't even believe in anymore. So I've used up the food, gave it away, threw it away, whatever. Now I prep for a year like I always, like normal people should. For thousands of years, people stock up in the summer and they have a cellar full of food. But anyway, at that time though, I was buying even that milk. So I put like 6 or 8 cartons or whatever of it back in my underground cellar. Right, I had a bunch of food back. I still do, still got food back there, but it's all canned. Anyway, I go in there one day, and I kid you not, there was a mouse that had chewed through the bottom corner of that milk carton, and it was dead on the spot. It drank that milk and died on the spot. I'm like, oh heck no! And I went and got it, cleaned it up, and next time I came back, another dead mouse chewed through a different one. The next one, and he's dead on the spot. And not only was he dead, but he was like all deflated and melting. It was so gross. But anyway, it's like, wow, what's in that? I threw it all out after that second mouse. Like, dang. Talk about lab rats. It's like, obviously they didn't test it on mice, because they both of them dropped dead on the spot after they drank that. Anyway, so I only have cans back there now. And no more of that milk. I'm glad I didn't even try it. Just seemed kind of gross that you wouldn't have to refrigerate it. Like, what's in it? Who knows? But anyway, I should do it again. I should go next time at the dollar store. I should buy some of that, put it back there again, and let the mouse eat it and drop dead. And this time take a picture. It was so gross though. I didn't want to take a picture. It was disgusting. But after I cleaned it up, I thought, yeah, I should have taken a picture. Because who'd believe that? I mean, normally they get sick and they go back in their nest and die. But no, this thing dropped dead on the spot. And I thought, dang. Then the next time I went in, the same thing. And then I threw them all out. Like, I don't care how hungry I'm at. I'm not drinking that. Anyway, so good luck with that milk that you don't have to refrigerate it. You know what? Next time I go to the dollar store, I am going to look at in fact, I'll buy one. We're going to do an experiment. We're going to look at the ingredients. I never did. I just thought, hey, it's milk that don't go bad. Why think about anything, right? Just put it on the shelf. You got to say to yourself, why doesn't it go bad? Dropped dead on the spot. Couldn't believe it. And not just and it decayed, like not like a regular mouse, just like decayed really fast. Like it just ate battery acid or something. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, should look at all the ingredients. Yep, not good. So, okay, 22 minutes. I keep going on and on. I'm going to get over here and get to the subject at hand, which is, I got a lot of tabs open because I was going to do the other one. There's two I'm going to do on Paul. One is contradiction between Jesus and Paul. Another one I have is the contradictions between Jesus, Paul, and Christianity. And I also have differences between Paul and Jesus and Peter. All very interesting studies. But anyway, I'm so tired, and I have them all up though. And I thought, yeah, I was going to do those, but I thought, no, I'm going to start with this one. And so anyway, I kind of wasted a lot of time getting this other one ready. But I'm going to go with this one. The 20 facts that prove Paul was a false apostle. Now, somebody had nicely written these up. We've gone over these not on this list, but we've individually talked about every one of these in the past. So this is not news to some of us. It's not news to me, but it might be news to somebody. And so I hope you find this helpful. And actually, I think what's even, well, it's all interesting, but I really think that the differences between Paul and Jesus are explain a lot. Because they're opposites. They see opposites. Paul and Jesus taught completely different messages. And so I think that people should know about that, because you know why? It explains why you have so many different doctrines and so many Christians arguing, this is right, no, that's right, because one's following Paul and one's following Jesus. That's where you get your argument. And I'll just give you an example. Once saved, always saved. All right. That's a Paul doctrine. He's the one that says you're saved always or whatever, no matter what you do. Jesus says otherwise. And so we're going to go over that, I don't know, maybe the day after tomorrow or something. Anyway, so that's where you get all this confusion. That's where you get all these arguments from it. One person thinks it's this, that one Christian thinks it's this, another Christian thinks it's that. They're both reading the same Bible, both reading the same scriptures. But one is quoting Paul and one is quoting Jesus. And that's where you get that's why everybody's arguing. They can't agree on nothing. Because it's pulling this a little closer to me. That's why people argue over these doctrines, is because they're both right. When you have one saved, always saved, debating against having a debate with the not once always saved, the OSAS debating the not OSAS, they're both right and they're both wrong, because there's verses to prove them both right. And it's just anyway, explains why everybody is disagreeing and there's so many conflicting messages. And really, at the end of the day, it's like a buffet. You just pick out what you want and live with it and be happy. Pick out all the things you like, and then don't take the things you don't. So pick out a little bit of Paul, a little bit of Jesus, 2 more sides of Paul, and then Paul for dessert, and you got it. And somebody else might want something else, you know what I mean? So, 20 facts. Let me open this camera up. If it'll come on, there it is. This is a PDF, and I will put a link for this in the chat. I could do that right now, so people can read this on their own. Let me put that in the chat right now. Do I have that open? Yeah, I do. Okay. So here is copy, paste. Okay, so here's the PDF, the link for the PDF that I have up that we're going to refer to tonight. They have done a nice job of kind of compiling some of this stuff. So let me find the link I just had. Like I said, I got about 20 tabs up, which took a long time to do, and I'm just going to bookmark those for probably Wednesday. Here it is. All right, so back to that. So we've got 20 facts that prove Paul was a false apostle, and this is actually, I could read it, I guess, the intro, because I don't think it's big enough. I don't think it's big enough for you guys to see it. I'll just read it though. Among messianics, besides this is this was let's see, what was the title of this? All right. And by the way, this is by the Assembly of Torah Observant Messianics, who are Tatum, T-A-T, that's the anagram for it. And anyway, it was last updated on October 20th. So that is the link I just put up. So, among Messianics in the Hebrew roots movement today, many have rightly come to the conclusion that not one jot or tittle of the law of Moses has passed away, just as Yeshua taught in Matthew 5:17-18. Yet most of these observant Messianics continue to engage in bend over backward apologetics for the man who is without question. This man who is without question the source of the notion that the law has passed away. Now, Yeshua was a 100% law-abiding Jew, as were his apostles who walked with him. There's no disputing this fact, nor is there any disputing the fact, absent Paul's doctrine, no believer in Yeshua would have taught any different above the law of Moses. And what I think is kind of interesting, and I've seen other people mention it, is that for for Paul to be so haphazard with the law is really kind of shocking, considering he wasn't just a Jew. Remember, he was a Pharisee, and he was a Pharisee of Pharisees who supposedly studied under Gamaliel himself. So he was an expert in the law, and he would have never, well, should have never broken the law or questioned or anything like that. So for some, I mean, I don't even know what the example would be, a comparison. Anyway, well, you could just say a judge, not that the judges are, anyway. But say a judge, and it's like a judge going around saying the law doesn't matter. Who cares about the law? You imagine a judge in the court in the county courthouse or federal courthouse. You see him out getting gas at a gas station. He's telling everybody the law doesn't matter. Who cares about the law? The law is dumb. It's a curse. Like, an expert in the law, or an attorney going around, an expert in the law. That's what Paul was supposed to be, an expert in the law. That's what not only a Pharisee is, an expert in the law, but Gamaliel, he was like the brightest and the smartest and the best law, all that stuff. So if you studied under this guy and you're a Pharisee and your dad's a Pharisee and you're a Pharisee and your whole, it's like you would never dream of breaking the law. All right. It's just like if you came from a long line of lawyers or police or law enforcement, and then you got someone in the family going around saying, who's also a lawyer, saying, law doesn't matter. Who cares? Break the laws. It makes no sense. So these 20, I'll just skip down here. The 20 facts have been divided into 5 categories. They are Paul's lack of qualifications, number 1. His arrogance, his doctrinal errors, the source of the division between the Jews and the Christians, and the very false apostle Yeshua commended the Ephesian believers for rejecting in Revelation 2:2. That's really interesting too. If you ever have read the book of Revelation, maybe, I don't know if some people maybe haven't, but a lot of us know that it starts out, with the 7 letters to the 7 churches. Jesus is very angry with these 7 churches. And whose are these churches? Paul's churches. And what does Jesus say in the Revelation? He says, I'm glad you spotted that false apostle and threw him out. That's funny. Who got thrown out again? And whose churches were they? Anyway, that's what they're referring to right here in Revelation 2:2. I think it said, well, I could look it up. It's probably the verse that says, what did they say? You found an apostle that was false and you called him out or whatever. I don't know how they worded it, but anyway, about spotting the false apostle in the church. And like I said, it happens to name the 7 churches that Paul started and ran. Winky dink? I think not. All right, so anyway, these are in the categories we're going to go over. There's 20. There's 5 categories, and there are 20 facts in these 5 categories. So we'll start that. I may have to get another cup of water because I'm out of water here. It was getting so late getting on here because I pulled up all those other tabs for kind of no reason now. But anyway, I was going to do a different thing about Paul, but anyway, I switched it. So, all right, let me see. All right. Yeah, I may have to get water here in a second. But anyway, for now, we'll start. So Paul's lack of qualifications, number 1. Category number 1. There were to be exactly 12 apostles, not one more, not one less. So you understand. Well, I'm going to read this and then I'm going to comment on it because I can comment more than this even. So I'll say what they have to say and then I'll add to it. So there were to be exactly 12 apostles, not one more, not one less. You know what I really find interesting? Paul makes himself the 13th apostle. Interesting. And how many books did he write? 13. And what do we know 13 is? The number of rebellion. Anyway, thought I'd add that, but I'll talk about something else when we get done here. And so there were to be exactly 12 apostles, not one more, not one less. So Paul is the 13th apostle. Okay, because when Judas Iscariot died in the book of Acts, they cast lots and the lot fell to Matthias. Okay, so remember, so they said, well, there has to be 12 apostles. So what did they do? And they said, they said something like, well, since Judas went to go where he's supposed to be or whatever, since he died, we need to replace one of these. Do they explain that? I might be jumping the gun. They might explain this later. But anyway, I'll say it anyway. They might cover this, but in case they don't, I don't want to forget it. So, so I do want to mention. So when Judas Iscariot died, there had to be 12 apostles, so they were down to 11. So in the book of Acts, they cast lots, and lots fell to Matthias. It was a choice between Matthias and somebody else. So Matthias gets the lot, and so he wins. And so he becomes the replacement 12th apostle. So now they got 12 apostles again, okay? And what did they say in the book of Acts? The apostle, and when they were going to cast lots, they picked between a couple of people who to qualify, you had to be with Jesus from the start of his ministry, which was John the Baptism. It specifically says this. You have to have been with Jesus from the start of his ministry, John the Baptist, hi Omar, all the way through his ministry, death, burial, and resurrection. So you had to be a witness to all this. Otherwise, you cannot be a replacement apostle. They might cover this later, but I don't know. We've covered this a lot, so I want to make sure to mention in case they don't. So right there, they already picked a qualified person. And the reason they picked Matthias was in the running is because Matthias had been there from the baptism of John the Baptist, from John the Baptist all the way to the death, burial, and resurrection. That's the qualifications. You had to know Jesus during that time. And so Matthias had been there the whole time. Because remember, there were other disciples. They named 12 of the main ones. So in order to replace Judas Iscariot, they had to get somebody from the pool of the people who had been there. And so what's up with Paul making himself the 13th apostle, and he's not qualified at all? He wasn't with them from the baptism of John the Baptist to the death, burial, and resurrection, so he wouldn't even be qualified. Anyway, there were to be exactly 12 apostles, not one more, not one less. Now, here are some scriptures that tell you that there's only supposed to be 12 apostles, okay? It's not like there was 12 and it was just random. No, it was meant to be always 12. And by the way, so not only is he the 13th apostle, and he writes 13 books, but I mean, 13 is the number of rebellion. Think about it. We got 13 stripes on our flag, 13 colonies, 13 years of schooling. I can't even think of them all, but anyway, the government uses 13 all the time. It's not in a good way. And that's just a side note. Good to see Omar. So how do we know that there's supposed to be 12? Luke 6:13. This is just a few of them. Luke 6:13. And when it was day, he called his disciples to him, and from them he chose 12, whom he also named apostles. So he called his disciples, who are also called apostles. Okay. So if you're anyway, we already went to qualifications. So, and then in Matthew 19:28, I know it's probably too small for you guys to see, but I'll read it. Matthew 19:28 says, So Yeshua said to them, Assuredly I say to you, that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on the throne of his glory, you who have followed me will also sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So you see, where's Paul going to sit? He's got to bring a folding chair? Because look, it says, Yeshua said, Assuredly I say to you, and these Bible verses are the reasons why the disciples know they need to get a replacement for Judas Iscariot. Because since Judas died, they're down to 11. They know they have to have 12. So they cast lots and put Matthias, and they're back to 12. Done deal, right? So in Matthew, this is Jesus speaking. You who have followed me will also sit on the 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. So he's saying to his disciples, there's going to be 12 extra thrones for you guys. All right. So where is Paul going to sit? You know what I'm saying? You may have to stand, right? And explain to Jesus, what the heck are you doing here? Anyway, so and then get this. In Revelation 21:14, again, Jesus says, Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations. Well, actually, I think this is John speaking, but nevertheless, they're talking about Jesus. It says, Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations. Why? By the way, they're talking about the New Jerusalem. Remember, this is the last chapter. I think it's the very last chapter of Revelation. Now, remember the last chapter after everything's done and even judgment's over, everything's done. The earth is rolled up like a scroll, tossed away, but a new Jerusalem comes down out of heaven. So a new earth comes down, except this is cube shaped. 1,400 miles that way, 1,400 miles that way, 1,400 miles tall. So it's a cube shaped heaven that comes down, New Jerusalem. This is what they're referring to. All right. So this is when heaven comes down, the New Jerusalem comes down. This is what they're talking about. Now the wall of the city had 12 foundations. So it had 12 floors. And on them were the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. Okay, so where's Paul's name going to go? Remember, this is, so it has 12 floors. The New Jerusalem comes down. It's heaven with mansions in it. It's got 12 floors. It's 1,400 miles in each direction, 1,400 high. So it's a cube. It's square. It's got 12 floors. And each of those floors are named after one of the 12 apostles. Okay. And then there's also 12 gates. There's 3 doors on each side, giant pearls. They call it the pearly gates. It's one gigantic pearl as a door. And then there's 3. So there's 3 of those pearl doors on each side of this New Jerusalem. So you got 3, 6, 9, 12. And those 12 giant pearl doors, they're actually gates to get into the New Jerusalem. And I don't know why there's gates, because you can't come and go. So I always wonder like that. Okay, why is there gates? Because it says nobody comes and goes. So, but for some reason there's gates, and those 12 gates are named after the 12 tribes of Israel. But the 12 floors that go up are named after each one of the 12 disciples. So if there's 13 disciples, who doesn't get a floor? Again, there's 12 thrones and 12 floors, one for each disciple, for the tribes of Israel. 12 thrones. So that's one thing. There were to be exactly 12 apostles, not one more, not one less. So that's so where's this 13th apostle coming in? And by the way, Jesus never said, hey, you guys, there's going to be one that comes after me. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. He did say that. But it wasn't a good thing, was it? He actually was warning you about somebody who's going to come after him. He said, me you reject, but him you will accept. You're going to like his stuff. But anyway, who could that be? So number 2. And he also said, hey, if anybody says, when I die and I'm gone, if anybody says they see me out in the desert, don't believe them. That's where we saw Paul, remember? All right. I wonder if this would be better if I put that down. All right. Next, number 2. Paul was unqualified to be an apostle. He could not take Judas's place because he never walked with the Jew. I think this is what I just went over. Never walked with Yeshua. To be qualified as one of Yeshua. So I won't have to go and explain this. But here's what I'm going to. They're probably going to say what I just said. To be qualified as one of Yeshua's 12 apostles, one was required to have walked with him and been an eye and ear witness to his entire ministry. Now in Matthew 19:28, Jesus says, so Yeshua said to them, assuredly I say to you, that in the regeneration, when the Son of Man sits on his throne of glory, you who have followed me sits on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel, which we just saw in the last one. When looking for someone to replace Judas, so that there would be exactly 12 apostles, Peter reiterated Yeshua's requirement. Therefore, here it is. Here's what I just said in the book of Acts. Remember in the first chapter, right after Jesus ascends, he goes up in the he goes up in the highest peak, and then he says goodbye, and then right after that, they have to replace Judas, right? So here's the part where they replace Judas. Acts 1, verse 21 and 22. Therefore, of these men who have accompanied us all the time, the Lord Yeshua went out, in and out among us. Live? Oh, my screen went out. That is weird. Can you guys still hear me? Oh, okay. Oh, that was weird. They just, I don't know. That was weird. I gotta find my. Do I even have a picture? You hear me now? Okay, that's weird. That's weird. I gotta find that tab again. I went to look to see if you guys were still there. Forgot what tab I was on. I gotta pull this tab over to the side so I don't have to look next time. Gracious. Oh, here. It was at the side. Okay. All right, where was I? You gotta be kidding me. I ain't it. No. Here it is. All right, that's weird. All right. So I was just reading in Acts when Peter is saying they have to replace one of the disciples, Judas. So there will be 12 apostles again, because as we just read, there has to be 12. So in order to get back to 12, these are the qualifications. Peter reiterated the qualifications. So Peter says in Acts 1, 21 and 22, Peter says, therefore, of these men who have accompanied us all the time that the Lord Yeshua went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John, that day when he was to the day that he was taken up from us, one of these must become a witness with us of his resurrection. So that's the qualification to replace a disciple. It says Peter clearly indicated that there were a number of others who were qualified to be an apostle because they had been there. But there was only one vacancy that needed filling. Paul didn't even qualify because he hadn't been there. And number 3, Yeshua did not, nor did any of the original 12 apostles ever refer to Paul as an apostle. Think about that. Think about that. Through all of Paul's letters and to all the interactions between Paul and the apostles, Peter, John, James, it never once did any of them refer to Paul as an apostle or disciple. This glaring fact stands on its own and speaks volumes. Paul referred to himself as an apostle 20 times, but the real apostles never once referred to him as apostle. They didn't recognize him as an apostle. For Paul's arrogance, Paul arrogantly claimed to be at least as good as the best of the 12 apostles. In 2 Corinthians 11:5, he says, "For I consider that I am not at all inferior to the most eminent apostles." So he's at least as good as the best of the best apostle. Referring to Yeshua's 12 apostles, Paul said, "I labored more abundantly than they all did." In 1 Corinthians 15:10, he's claiming he worked harder than all of the real apostles. Yikes. Paul made it clear he was in competition with Yeshua's apostles for status in the eyes of his readers. There is no other reason for making these kinds of statements. Yeshua condemned the Pharisees, of which Paul was a member. You got to remember that too. And I think what's interesting? Paul is from the tribe of Benjamin. And the tribe of Benjamin, you can look it up. You know what their symbol is? The wolf. And Jesus said after I leave, there'll be ravenous wolves among you. It's funny because Paul's from the tribe of Benjamin, and their symbol is the wolf. But anyway, yeah, so Paul was a Pharisee. A Pharisee of Pharisees. Who did Jesus have who was the only ones that Jesus had a problem? He didn't have a problem with the Jewish people at all. Who's the only ones Jesus had a problem with? The Pharisees and the Sadducees, but the people running the temple. The Pharisees. And so everybody's supposed to drop everything and listen to this Pharisee. Who, by the way, didn't stop being a Pharisee, because I heard people say, "Oh, he stopped being a Pharisee." No, he didn't. Right at his last breath, when he's on his way out to Rome, as he's on trial, he actually pulled his Pharisee card. He's like, "Well, I'm a Pharisee. I'm a Pharisee. I'm so educated, and I'm this and I'm that. I'm a Pharisee." So he pulled the Pharisee card right at his trial in the last book he wrote before he left for Rome to go on trial there. So he's still pulling the Pharisee card right up to the end. He didn't say I was. He said I am a Pharisee. He never stopped being a Pharisee. But Paul was always, and just think about it. You've got 12 or more apostles personally trained in following Jesus, trained by Jesus, okay? And you've got Paul, who is a Pharisee, butting heads with Jesus's followers, his own disciples. Think about that. Paul butting head with every one of Jesus' disciples. And the crazy thing, I see Christians saying, "Good for Paul for standing up to Jesus' disciples." Oh man, that's crazy. Anyway, Yeshua condemned the Pharisees. Remember, he said, "Oh, you hypocrites and devils and everything else," of which Paul was a member, for this very behavior. That's a good point. This is exactly what Jesus condemned the Pharisees for, behaving just like this, like they were better than everybody else. I'm not inferior. I'm better. I'm better. I tried harder than all. I work harder than he's a Pharisee, and this is what Jesus was complaining about the Pharisees for this exact same thing. See Matthew 23, 1-36. Verse 5 sums it up. quote, by all their works they do to be seen by men. There are two ways for a Pharisee like Paul to advance his image: either lift himself up above the other apostles, as an example of above, or put other apostles down and belittle them. Bear this in mind in the following. All right, number 5. Paul actually tried to sell a good thing, the fact that he had virtually no input from the 12 apostles who did walk with Jesus. Now, I think this is just like, this blows me away too. Just wrap your mind around that. Paul is bragging that not only wasn't he an apostle, he is actually bragging that he didn't learn anything from the disciples. So not only did he not know Jesus when he was alive, never knew Jesus alive, supposedly he got knocked over by a bright light that yelled at him. That's the only contact that he says, and you got to take his word for that. And by the way, it's in a story that contradicts itself 3 times in 3 different stories. So his story is flawed, but that's the only story he's got where he's with a bright light. That's the only contact he has with Jesus. He doesn't know Jesus, never met him while he was alive. But he's actually bragging. So not only doesn't he know Jesus, but he's actually bragging that he doesn't learn anything from the real apostles. I mean, just think about that. He's bragging that he learned nothing from Jesus' apostles, doesn't want to learn nothing from them. He's got his own gospel. Paul has his own gospel, and he states, I didn't learn nothing from them, and I don't want to. Anyway, so Paul boasted of having spent no more than 15 days with Peter. Right? No time with Jesus, 15 days with Peter. He actually bragged he only spent 15 days with Peter. His gospel was supposedly so much better, he received his by divine revelation. So you got to take Paul's word that his gospel came in divine revelation. So it came out of like outer space. You know, I suppose he just got a message from God that this is the real gospel. So he's bragging he only spent 15 days with Peter, and he don't like his gospel. Paul's got his own. Quote, and this is from a quote from Galatians chapter 1, verse 11, 12, 15 through 18. Quote, but I make known to you, brethren, that the gospel which was preached by me is not according to man. For I neither received it from man, nor was I taught it, but it came through the revelation. So he doesn't tell you about it. It just tells you, through the revelation of Jesus Christ, which is funny because the last book of the Bible is called the Revelation of Jesus Christ, and it's scolding Paul. But anyway, quote, but it pleases God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me through his grace to reveal his Son in me, that I might preach him among the Gentiles. I did not immediately confer with flesh and blood, nor did I go up to Jerusalem to those who were apostles before me, but I went to Arabia and returned again to Damascus. We just read this last night because in the book of Acts, 3 times, we listened to 3 different testimonies, you might call it, on his road to Damascus. And all 3 of them says after he came back from Damascus, he immediately went to Jerusalem and started his, basically all 3 of them, he basically started his ministry in Jerusalem. But here he said he went to Arabia first. And he was gone for like 14 years. Then, after 3 years, I went up to Jerusalem to see Peter and remained with him for 15 days. But I saw none of the other apostles except James, the Lord's brother. One would think any connection to the 12 apostles who actually walked with Yeshua would have been considered a priceless asset to Paul. But he speaks of it as though it would have been a detriment to his vision of the gospel. He actually boasted how little exposure he had to the apostles, as if any more exposure would have corrupted him. That's a fact. I'm probably only going to get through 10 of these tonight. Might have to do the other 10 tomorrow because I see we're at an hour. I'll do 10 tonight and 10 tomorrow. And I'll do the double stream Wednesday. Because, yeah, I can't get through 20 of these in one night. Paul belittled Yeshua's apostles and brother as those who only seemed to be something. Remember when he said that? Wow, that's a slap in the face. Listen to these incredibly condescending words of Paul towards Yeshua's apostles. Quote, this is from Galatians 2, 6 and 9. Quote, but from those who seemed to be something, whatever they were, it makes no difference to me. He's talking about Jesus' disciples. But those who seemed to be something, whatever they were, makes no difference to me. God shows personal favoritism to no man. For those who seemed to be something added nothing to me. And when James, Peter, and John, who seemed to be pillars, perceived the grace that had been given to me, they gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship. And you know what? That never happened, by the way. Paul's pathological need to put down and belittle Yeshua's true apostles could hardly be more evident. Oh, side note, Paul was dead wrong in stating God shows personal favoritism to no man. God most certainly favors those who love and obey him. It should be every person's goal to grow in favor with God to the degree of the one who loves and obeys him will be the degree in which they find favor in his eyes. Psalms, Proverbs, Luke. So no, Paul's dead wrong is right. When he said God shows no favoritism to man, personal favoritism, that's wrong. There's many times it says he'll favor those who follow him or obey by his rules. Paul needs to belittle spiritual giants in effort to lift himself above them. Didn't stop at belittling Yeshua's apostles. Listen to how, with a hand wave, he arrogantly brushes aside even Moses. In 2 Corinthians 3, 12 and 13, he says, we use great boldness of speech, unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face. That's something. He just dissed Moses. Read it in 2 Corinthians 3, 12 and 13. It says, we use great boldness of speech, unlike Moses, who put a veil over his face. Oops, burn. All right. 7. Paul dropped his own name as though it was a household name throughout the Roman Empire to be reckoned with, while speaking a damnable lie. In Galatians 5:2 it says, indeed, I, Paul, say to you that if you become circumcised, Christ will profit you nothing. Okay, so if you get circumcised, Jesus is worthless. All right. Yeah, I'm totally out of water here. Don't even have ice cube left. Paul's incredible arrogance in that he pontificates from the supposed authority of his own name is the issue here. The point is self-evident enough that nothing more needs to be said about it. But the fact that he pontificates what is also a horrendous lie cannot be left unaddressed. In other places where Paul speaks of circumcision, he speaks of it as being worthless and of no benefit. He says this because he believes the nation of Israel is identified by circumcision is no longer Israel in heaven's eyes. He believes that Christians who walk by faith alone, apart from the law, are the true new Israel of God. See Galatians 6:15, 16. This doctrine is called replacement theology. You've all heard of that. Replacement theology. That's where pretty much all old stuff is out. Whatever Paul says is in. Well, even like if they say that, like they'll be in the Old Testament saying this law stands forever, and they'll say, "Nah, we're going to change that one." All right. But yeah, anyway, the Christ will profit you nothing. In Galatians 5:4, it says, imagine, it says, estranged from Christ. He goes on the text to say that those who become circumcised become estranged from Christ and have fallen from grace if you get circumcised. Galatians 5:4. Anyway, imagine being a Jew and you're effectively told that you must choose between Moses or Messiah. That's really what Paul's making people do. You pick between Moses or Messiah. And it's kind of funny because Jesus said he's not changing any laws. But Paul says, nah, we're changing them. The lie in Paul's doctrine presupposes the choice in either or proposition where Yeshua and Moses are mutually exclusive choices. So what Paul makes you do is either pick Jesus or Moses, and which is funny because Jesus is not agreeing with anything Paul says. Jesus agrees with the laws of Moses. He's a Jew and he's living with Jews and he'd never go against the laws of Moses. He made that clear. But Paul makes it seem to everybody else you have to pick between Jesus or Moses. What do you see today? Isn't that what Christians are saying? It's either Jesus or the law of Moses. Yeshua endorsed every jot and tittle of Moses. Do you remember that? Not one jot or tittle will pass away. Jesus endorsed every jot and tittle of Moses. There isn't a dot or T crossed or I dotted that he didn't approve of. He says he's not come to do away with it. This means he endorsed everything Moses said about circumcision as well. Then Yeshua commanded his followers to go and make disciples of all nations. All right, disciples of all nations means, everybody who's not Jewish. Teaching them to observe all things that I have commanded you. That's a quote from Jesus. Teaching them what? Teaching them to observe all the things that I have commanded you. He just commanded you to observe all the laws of Moses. One most certainly cannot become estranged from Christ and profit nothing from him for the act of obeying him. So if you obey Jesus, Jesus will become estranged from you and he'll profit you nothing if you obey what he said. Basically, is what Paul's saying. And then you wonder why Christians are arguing and confused about all this. It's because it says both. It says you can do the law, can't do the law. Paul says you don't have to. Jesus says you do. That's why they're all arguing over it. I do have an ice cube left. All right. Well, how many? We're at 8. So is there any wonder that Jews want nothing to do with Christianity's Messiah? More on the fact that Paul's responsible for the division between the Jews and Christians in number 17. But we're only on number 8. We're going to get to 10 and then we'll call it a night. So number 8. Paul believed his testimony should be considered as reliable as a testimony of 3 separate witnesses if he gave his testimony on 3 separate occasions. Do you know how ridiculous that is? It's like me giving my testimony in court 3 different times and then going to tell the judge that counts as 3 witnesses. No, it doesn't. It's because you went up on the stand 3 times. Doesn't mean that you count as 3 people. And that's what he's trying to do. Paul's arrogance is not only the thing on display in the following. Listen to his absurd logic where he quotes from the law of Moses in Deuteronomy 19:15. And this is in 2 Corinthians 13:1 and 2. Paul writes, "This will be the 3rd time I'm coming to you. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established." He says, since it's the 3rd time I'm coming, I can quote the Deuteronomy where you need 2 or 3 witnesses. All right, 2 or 3 witnesses to establish a fact. Always has been. But Paul says, since he's coming to you for the 3rd time, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word shall be established. I told you before, and I foretell it as if I were present for the second time, and now I'm being absent, I write. And so this is the third time he's telling somebody. He thinks that counts as 3 witnesses. And you know how absurd that is, or right? It's absurd logic. Absurd. In fact, here they even say the same thing. Really, how far would this logic fly in any courtroom? If I went into a courtroom and give out my testimony, walk out, and then come back. This is exactly what I just said. And I swear I did not read that. Come back and give the same a second time. Come and get a third time. Does that count as 3 separate witnesses? Of course not. Only the most unjust and evil courtrooms could that charade fly. Are we really to believe that these are the infallible words of God? Yeshua referenced the same law of Moses. Notice the difference of how he applies it. Moreover, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault, you and him alone. If he hears you, you've gained a brother. But if he will not hear you, take 1 or 2 more with you, that by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses every word shall be established. Matthew 18, 15, 16. This is the one that they say is a Mandela effect, because it's supposed to say 2 or more. Nah, it says 2 or 3. In summary, if anyone other than Paul had said these kinds of arrogant, competitive, deceptive, and dumb things, it would have been seen for what it was. But because Paul's saying it, people give him a pass. Christians believe Jesus is God, and they believe God cannot change. So why would they believe that God would want them to dismiss Jesus' teachings to follow Paul instead? That's right. If you believe Jesus is God, then you're going against God himself. Good point. All right, number 9. Paul's doctrinal errors. Oh, there's a lot. You know what's really weird about this? He's supposed to be a Pharisee, which is an expert on the law. And an expert of experts. Remember, he's a Pharisee of Pharisees. And his dad was a Pharisee. And he was trained under Gamaliel, who's also the top expert in the law. So you'd think Paul would have his stuff down pretty good, huh? Well, he doesn't. Paul stated something about Abraham that was absolutely wrong. How can Paul's words be considered infallible, the infallible word of God, in light of the following? Referring to Abraham, Paul said, quote, and this is in Romans 4, 19 and 20. Paul says, quote, and not being weak in faith, he did not consider his own body already dead, since about 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. He did not waver at the promise of God through unbelief, but he was strengthened in faith, giving glory to God. Now compare this to what really happened in Genesis. Then God said to Abraham, as for your Sarah, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but call Sarah is her name. And I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she will be a mother in all nations. Kings and peoples shall be from her. Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who's 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who's 90 years old, bear a child? Not only that, but Sarah laughed. In another account, Sarah laughed. It's funny because God didn't scold Abraham when he laughed, but later when Sarah laughed, God scolded her. That's kind of funny. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, who doesn't remember that Abraham and Sarah, who doesn't remember that Abraham and Sarah both laughed at the thought that they were so old? Martin speaks as Jesus came to Paul, you need help, but at least read the Bible. All right, we'll do. We'll get on that reading the Bible thing. Thanks for that input. All right, Paul apparently had a lapse of memory and got it completely wrong. This would be forgivable for any ordinary person, as if it were an honest mistake. But when a man's words have been elevated to the level of infallible word of God, error of any kind is unforgivable, and proof of his words are not the inspired word of God. Now last, yeah, parrot pusher, yeah. Give Martin a cracker. All right, number 10, and this is the last one before we stop for tonight. Paul said Yeshua abolished the law of Moses, but Yeshua said, do not think that I've came to do any such thing. Here's a sampling of Paul's anti-law statements. And actually, we are going to, on Wednesday, we're going to go over the side-by-side comparisons, a side-by-side list. I got a lot of side-by-side lists. I'll just flick to a few of them. So I was going to do that tonight, but that takes even longer. So anyway, I've got a lot of side-by-side comparisons of what Jesus taught and what Paul taught. And this is one of the things, but this is not, it's not the only thing, it's one of the things. Here's a sampling of Paul's anti-law statements. In Ephesians 2:14-15, quote, for he himself is our peace, who has made both one and has broken down the middle wall of the division between us, having abolished his flesh, the enmity, that is the law of commandments contained in the ordinance, so as to create himself one new man from thus making peace. Next in Romans, there's four of them here. Therefore, my brethren, you also have become dead to the law through the body of Christ. Romans 10:4. For Christ is the end of the law. So you can just see, he abolished the flesh. That's the law, the commandments. So he abolished the commandments, dead to the law. Christ is the end of the law. The law is our tutor, no longer under the tutor. Yeah. Hey, Patrick, good to see you tonight. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had an awesome Monday. Good to see you, Patrick. All right. Therefore, the law was our tutor to bring us to Christ, that we might be justified by faith. But after faith has come, we're no longer under a tutor. But Yeshua said, and we'll be going over, like I said, we're going to be going over these side by side Wednesday. But Yeshua said, do not think that I have come to destroy the law of the prophets. I did not come to destroy but to fulfill. And in fulfill, in Strong's Concordance, fulfill means to ratify, to execute fully. So to carry these laws out. And actually, it can also mean to teach in its fullest. For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one jot or tittle will by no means pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Fulfilled means completed and done. And that is, he's referring to heaven and earth passing away. So till heaven and earth pass away, not one of these laws is gonna be destroyed. All right. For some among the Gentiles have rejected my lawful preaching and have referred a lawful and absurd doctrine of the man is my adversary. And indeed, some have attempted, while I'm still alive, to distort my word by interpretation of many sorts, as if I taught the dissolution of the law. But that may God forbid, for to do such a thing would act contrary to the law which God made to Moses and was confirmed by our Lord in its everlasting continence. For he said, or continuance, for he said, for heaven and earth will pass away, but not one jot or tittle will pass away from these. By these men professing, I know not how to know my mind, undertakes an explanation of words which they have heard from me more intelligently than I have spoke them. And that is 10. We'll do the other 10 tomorrow. On another side note, this excerpt from Peter's letter also shines a whole new light on 2 Peter 3, where Peter in earlier times has spoken more favorably of Paul. It's one of the first passages Paul supporters point to in defense of Paul. And by the way, 2 Peter is been proven to be a forgery. Second Peter and a couple other ones are proven to be a forgery, and it's not from Paul. There's many facts that point and prove that it was not written by Paul. Katie, I don't know. What's Katie's religion? I don't know. Go ask her. I think she just left that way, actually. If you hurry now, you can catch up to her. All right. And all right, and we'll stop there because we're halfway through the list, so we'll stop there. All right, there you go. Faith. What is Katie religion? Well, what do you think? The dog just said you don't know. Did you hear him? That was funny. The dog answered you. I'm not a religion. I don't have a religion. I believe in God. How's that? Good enough? We'll find out what Katie believes in later, okay? I'll ask her. If she comes back, I'll ask her. But I don't think she's there anymore. I think she left. Anyway, any comments, questions? Besides Faith's question? Is that your name, Faith? Are you a girl? Or Faith is just... What is a Katie religion? Oh, is this a Katie religion channel? No. What you want to... Let's see. What you go... Let's see. I'll tell you how to get to Katie religion channel. I think if you go on YouTube, what you're going to have to want to go ahead and do is type in Katie religion and see if there's any YouTube channels that has that. I haven't heard of it. But who knows? We know that there's a spaghetti monster religion, so who knows? Maybe there's a Katie religion. Seems Faith lacks faith. I think so. Maybe they're calling themselves Faith. Kind of like, you know how Stuart Smalley sits down and looks in the mirror and says, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. It's the same thing. She sits down or he calls himself Faith. So, boost your faith that way. Anyway, anybody else got a question besides faith? God said, let there be. That's right, Patrick. God said, let there be light. I lost my channel. What the heck? Anyway, I had my channel up here. I gotta get back in the chat because I can't see your guys' comments really that much. If I try to scroll on the phone, it highlights a comment or disconnects me, so I gotta get back in the chat. I can see your guys' comments. Let's see. Yep. There it is. There's my chat. I just saw so in south of St. Paul, Minneapolis, there is a highway, and there for 40 years probably there's been a pole with a car on top of it. There's like a mannequin in the car. So like whenever you're in that area, you could drive by, you could see the car up on the pole. There's actually just a Porsche, like a 1980 something Porsche. And a bus company, but the dad died, and anyway, but it's been up there just for years. But everybody knew the famous car on the pole, and and they just removed it, and because the Corvette, yeah, actually it's a Porsche. You've seen it, I'm sure you've seen it. Anybody from Minnesota, if you've gone south of the cities, what was it? I can't remember. So I can't remember exactly where it is, but yeah, it's a Porsche. Let's see. and they just took it down. Anyway, some guy, they called the bus company, took it down because they want to sign up because they bought the property and they want to sign a death ritual. Is that why it was up there? How sad. The Corvette. I'm gonna show you the car. It's just weird. Car on the pole. Let's see. It had Psalms. It had Psalm on it. A Psalm. It was a Psalm that said 46:10. Here it is. For God knows how long it has hovered up there, struck atop a towering pole overlooking I-94. That's what it is. It's on south of Minneapolis on I-94. So if you're ever coming south from the south, and you can see St. Paul, Minneapolis you can see it from a long miles away. But anyway, so overlooking I-94 in Minneapolis, a Porsche 914 with Psalms 46:10 printed on its side, helmed by a ratty-looking mannequin. Like any freaky urban art, folk art, it gave motorists speeding through an impermanent world a sense of consistency. This thing's been here since 40 or 50 years. I'll show you a picture of it. Anyway, I looked up Psalm 46:10. It says, I will be exalted above all. It says, I will be exalted above all. A memorial? No, it's not. I saw an interview with the daughters because it was on the news on KARE 11. They had an article on YouTube. I saw a clip of it. And yeah, so this thing, so if you ever drive, if you're coming up 94, I think, or whatever it was, at 35, you will coming towards Minneapolis, you'll see this thing. It's on the west side, the left side, or whatever. So, no, the daughters are pretty old. They're probably about my age, but their dad passed a while ago. But it was their dad's, and their dad. It used to be a scrap yard. I think it was a scrap yard. I can't remember, but it used to have it was either auto parts or scrap yard or something like that. And it used to have the name of the company there. I can't remember. Can't remember the name, what it used to be on there. But after the company closed, the dad put the Psalm 46:10 up there. That's a mannequin, and it's a girl mannequin, but they also had a guy mannequin too. But anyway, where is it? No, here's another one. Actually, we got a few of these cars around town. Like, people will put a car. I've seen it. I could think of 3 of them right at the top of my bat, where they have a car up in the air like that. I mean, this is a junkyard. This is an auto scrap yard or whatever. But we got a few cars on poles around here. But this one was a real famous one. It's been there forever. But it says, in fact, I'll look it up here. Psalm 46:10. But the daughters said that it was their dad's thing. Anyway, so the bus company cut it off and took it down, and the guy down the road is going to have it, and he's going to put it back up in his yard because he owns a like a junk thrift shop. I mean, his whole property is filled with junk. Anyway, he's got a little junk spot there. He's going to put it up so people can see it from the highway for where he's at. His business is right off the highway too. So he said he can get up, I think 10, 15 feet. I'm not sure. High enough for people to see. Yeah. Psalm 46:10. Right. Come on, you. Psalm 46:10. No, not song. Yeah, one second. This one's not one. Psalm 46:10.
Know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
I'll do it again because it wasn't in it. Psalm 46:10.
According to Bible Study Tools, 10, be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
He lifted up high above everybody. We broke down right beside that thing during a heavy thunderstorm years ago. Yep, everybody knows this thing. But anyway, they just took it down. But don't worry, he's going back up down the road, somebody else's. So yeah, the girl said that it was in their yard. You know what I mean? Because their dad owned the auto parts store there, or whatever. And she said when she was going away to college, when she'd come home, when she saw this thing, she knew she was almost home. But you know what? Probably a lot of people did, because if you come south, if you're coming from the south up into Minneapolis from the south, going north on 35 or not, probably 35, you'll see this thing. So everybody in Minnesota knows this thing. But anyway, he'll be exalted above all high. It's funny. Yeah, there's a Porsche. And you know what's interesting? I was reading an article about this, and they said this Porsche, now it's an 84. I can't remember what year it is, but the plan for this Porsche, the engine in this car, is that they were going to put the engine in the Porsches, and they're also going to put the same engine in the Volkswagens. And at the last minute, they decided just to put it in this car and not the Volkswagen. So this Volkswagen's almost had the same engine as this car here. It's kind of interesting history. Galatians, as we have said before, now I said again, if anyone preaches to you a gospel different from what you've received, let him be accursed. Well, right, but Paul has one gospel and Jesus has a different gospel. So which gospel, who's going to get cursed? If you preach Jesus's, because Paul's got a different one. So what Paul is saying is that if you preach Jesus's gospel, you'll be accursed. Because Paul and Jesus both have different gospels. That's why Paul argued with all the Jesus' real disciples and said that they are nothing. You know that? You know, Paul told the disciples that they're nothing. Yeah. So Jesus' disciples, Peter and Paul and James, they're all teaching Jesus' gospel. But Paul, on his own admission, has his own gospel. Paul came up with his own gospel other than Jesus and other than that Jesus' real disciples were teaching. And that's why Paul got mad. He said, hey, if they try teaching their gospel, let them be cursed. Well, all right. So if you don't follow Jesus, if you do, what he's saying is that if you follow the gospel that these Jesus disciples are teaching, you're cursed. So what's it going to be, Faith? You're going to follow Jesus, you're going to follow Paul, because you can't follow them both. In fact, Wednesday, I'll prove that, okay? In fact, tomorrow night, we're going to do part 2 of this. And if you can't tell that Paul's a false disciple after 20 of these, maybe stick around for Wednesday, because you're going to see how Jesus, and believe me, if you don't think Jesus would be fighting with Paul himself, you're wrong, because every one of Jesus' disciples is fighting with Paul. Like I said the other night, the only one that Paul gets wrong with in the whole New Testament are women. Why? Because women have to keep their mouth shut. That's why he gets along with them. And they're giving him money, helping him. So the only one that Paul doesn't have a problem with, argue with, is the women. Do you realize that? He fought with in fact, he even fought with his own. He fought with Barnabas. He fought with Mark. He fought with everybody. And if Jesus was here, he'd fight with him too. Because he's fought with every one of his disciples, said they're nothing. They don't know nothing. I got my own gospel. And if you follow anybody else's, you're cursed. So yeah, you can stick with that. Stick with that. I don't know. Whatever works. I don't care. Stick with whatever rule. I think my personal opinion is that everybody's born with a conscience. All right. Everybody's born with a conscience. That's your Bible. That's your manual. And then people say, well, wait a minute. There's killers and bad people. And they don't have a conscience. Yeah, they do. Your conscience tells you whether something's right or wrong. All right? Your conscience tells you whether something's right or wrong. So if you say, well, Ted Bundy didn't have no conscience because he kept killing and killing and killing. Yeah, he did have a conscience. A conscience doesn't mean you feel guilty. No, a conscience just tells you right from wrong. And he knew right from wrong. That's why he killed them and hid their bodies, because he knows it's wrong. All right. In fact, if you don't have a conscience, that means you don't know right from wrong and you're mentally insane. You're actually legally insane. If you don't know right from wrong, that means your conscience doesn't work. You don't know. So nobody who kills somebody and wipes up the blood and hides the body and hides the evidence, that's that person, their conscience said, yes, it's wrong. But they want to get away with it anyway. So yeah, it's your conscience. Grace says, what did Jesus warn about the desert? Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So faith. Let's do a little trivia, okay? All right, so I have a question for you, Faith. Jesus said, what did Jesus say about seeing somebody in the desert? Do you remember? What did he say about the desert? If you see somebody in the desert, what should you do? If somebody says that they saw Jesus in the desert, what should you do? Because that's where Paul said he saw Jesus out in the desert. You could also call it a deserted place. It's just where there's no people. It's a deserted place. That's where the definition of a desert is deserted. So now Paul said he saw Jesus in the desert. All right. Now, Jesus said, after I die, if somebody says that they saw me in the desert, what should you do? A, believe them and let them write a bunch of letters and call it a Bible. Or B, don't believe them. Don't believe them. Which is it? Believe him and do everything he says and argue on his behalf. Or B, don't believe him. Do you know which one it is, Faith? A or B? Do you say if you see somebody in the desert, after I die, if you see somebody in the desert, did he say believe everything he said and argue on his behalf? Or did he say if you see somebody in the desert, don't believe him? Maybe you can work on that for tomorrow, okay? What did Jesus said? If somebody sees me in the desert, what should you do? You want to come back tomorrow with the answer? Paul said he saw Jesus in the desert. What did Jesus say about people that say they saw him in the desert? What should you do? Tell us tomorrow, okay? That can be your homework assignment. If you don't want to answer right now, maybe you can look it up and study. And then tomorrow, tell us what he said, okay? Tell us what Jesus said. Anyway. No, actually, so this is a boy. This is a boy mannequin with a yellow raincoat on. And that's a girl mannequin. She was out there first. And then I think they got the guy out there. But there's two different mannequins. That's funny. I'm exalted above all. I'm exalted above, high above all. That's what Psalm 46. Anyway. So, no answer, Faith? Well, maybe you can work on that tonight, all right? Okay. Well, so I'm going to say good night. Adios. And all that stuff. Hit my icon. There it goes. All right. Anything else? Otherwise, I'll say good night. Ciao. Peace. And all that stuff. All right. All right. I think I'm ready to go. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming in. If you're listening on the replay, thanks for listening on the replay. Thank you for those people that gave me a thumbs up. I like that. Thank you. Appreciate it. And we'll do part 2 of this tomorrow. And then Wednesday, we're going to show you the difference between Jesus' gospel and Paul's gospel. Because Paul said he wrote his own gospel, and anybody that teaches anything else, including Jesus' gospel, is accursed. So Wednesday, we'll go over that. So anyway, this might be the week of Paul. Anyway, so good night. Well, thank you, Grace. Grace says, thank you, Mama Cat and everyone. Always enjoying our time together. Love you, Kathy. Love, prayers, and blessings to you all. Love, prayers, blessings to you too, Grace. Love you too. Love all you guys. Thanks for coming in. Hope you all have a good rest of the evening. Have an awesome day tomorrow. If you're listening on the replay, thanks. If you were here with us tonight, thanks. Appreciate it. Love you guys and hope to see you tomorrow night. Peace.